is the 29th day of October 2025. I'm going to be reading from a particular book online here, simply called Psychology and Kabbalah. This is chapter 4, entitled Jacob's Ladder. So it's entitled Jacob's Ladder, chapter 4. And again, the author is the same author of Kabbalah, Tradition of Hidden Knowledge. This was a book, again, on Thames, Thames, Hudson, which is a publishing house in England. And Psychology and Kabbalah is also done by the same author. His first name is Zev, Z-E-V, Ben, B-E-N, Shaman, Habaleh. Habalai, I guess you could say Habalai, if that's correct. So we're going to continue on, chapter 4, and let's continue here with the title simply called Jacob's Ladder. And what does that mean? Well, I don't know. Let's find out. Let's find out something here really critical for us to understand. So we go magnifier here, make it a little easier for me to read. So, welcome all here. Jacob's Ladder, the first of three lower worlds. To emerge from the realm of primordial world of divine is called Beriah, B-E-R-I-A-H, the world of creation. This arises out of the mist of Azilut, that is A-Z-I-L-U-T, so that the lower face or half of imagination is concealed behind the upper face of creation. Thus, there are places where the sephirah of the superior world match the sephirah of the inferior world in an interpretation of different realities. This principle applies to all subsequent worlds and allows for their interaction, like air dissolving into water and water evaporating into air. Later we shall see how such junction points between levels are crucial in experience and development. The crown of creation arises out of the divine sephirah of beauty, which is also called the place of Yahweh Elohim, the Creator. This Beriah Keter, although an echo of the Keter of Azilah, has quite a different quality in that it marks the beginning of time and space. The Bible speaks of the 7 days of creation, which describe the phases of cosmic unfoldment as the sephirah created a universe on the model of a divine world above. Such a world is of lesser order, a more dense and complex nature, as the laws of Azilut, A-Z-I-L-U-T, and Beriah are combined and interact in a dimension that is one removed from its origin, quote, things, end quote, begins to appear and move from now. Having emerged from the eternal world of unity, potentiality can begin to differential into location and duration. Thus the upper and lower firmaments are separated. Land appears and plants and celestial bodies marking the seasons emerge. Birds, fish, and animals are created. And finally, the Beriah Adam, the spiritual image of divinity, is brought forth. Here's the cosmic world of ideas, the place where the essence of everything that is to be arises in the universe like thoughts in the mind of God, out of what is traditionally called the throne of heaven, upon which sits the divine Adam of Azilah. Emerges the third world of Zerah, or formation. This arises out of the mist of Beriah, so that its Keter corresponds to the Tiferet of creation and the Malchut of Azilah. Again, forgive me with the way I pronounce these words, folks. These are all new words for me, so please forgive me. Here's where the three upper realms meet. The quality of the Zerah is like that of water. If Beriah is likened to air and Azilah is to fire, so we're talking about symbolism here, this symbolism gives some idea of the character of the four worlds. fire radiates, you see, air moves, and water takes up different forms, while earth represents the tangible quality of the lowest and most solid world. Because the earth is solid, you see. The air is not solid, neither is fire solid, and water is somewhat solid, although it can be malleable. The fluidity zone of Jezariah holds the position of being in the intermediate between the physical and the spiritual and the divine. It is also said to be the emotional level of existence with Beriah, or the intellectual and Azillah at the level of pure consciousness. The quality of Jezariah is caught in the various descriptions of paradise, with all the various shapes and sizes and colors and sights and sounds to be experienced there. Here, the creative ideas of Beriah and the will of the Absolute coming through Azillah manifest as the laws of superior levels interact with your Zerah. This world is of particular interest in our study, as it is the habitat of the psyche and all the archetypes, or gods, demons, and angels, as the ancients called them. The lowest world is Jacob's ladder, is called A-S-I-Y, Yah, Azayah, I'm just going to spell it, A-S-I-Y-Y-A-H, or the world of action and the elements. Here, the combined influx of all that happens in the worlds above manifests in the transient moment by moment reality of the concrete, that is, the states of solids, liquids, gases, and radiations. And these four I just mentioned, solids, liquids, and gases, and well, solids would have to be the earth. You see, the gases would have to be fire. The liquids would, well, maybe I'm wrong about that. I could be wrong about it. Don't quote me on that. I'll just stick with what it says here. Solids, liquids, gas, but they're representing the fire, water, air, and earth signs, being the result of all that has happened in the upper worlds. An example of this is the effect of the sun upon the atmosphere, whose winds stir up the ocean and then precipitate rain over the earth. The Beriah ideas and Jezerati forms produce the forms that make the minerals, plants, and animals arise in the elementary world of Azariah. Modern science sees materially that is, as the wave/particle ground bed of physical existence, but not as origins. In other words, they're only looking at the time they're looking at in the present moment. They're not looking to its origins in the past. Everything we observe with the senses is made up of a vast and subtle combination of all four worlds concentrated into the material spectrum. And I think we can show this here. Let's see, I can find it here, the color section here. It's a different color though, let's see. They're all four different areas, and this particular color, this schematic, I guess you would call it, is showing something quite different, how they fit. So this is how this book does it. It's a different book here, but it's showing it this way. So we're going to try, hopefully you can see this, because they're going to be, white is at the top, light blue is the middle, the second one down, the next one down is purple, and the last one's sort of a pink red, so to speak. So can you see those there? And those are the four differences you see, okay? And in this area here, this one here explains, it's a little bit different, but that's not the same thing here. It's a different perspective. It's more at the very top, so to speak, with different colors representing something here, which I've got to figure out myself. I'm learning just like anybody else is here. Figure 9, this is what it's saying, this is what we just looked at. It's called the Jacob's Ladder. Not the one with the white, blue, purple, and pink. Here the four worlds are locked in together, generating a fifth tree running down and up the center. This connects different, the fifth would be the whole complexity of all of it being together. Okay, so we can look at a triangle sometimes, and we see a triangle, but we also see something within that triangle, another small little triangles within it. You see that, so to speak. This connects different realities through consciousness with two major nodal points where the three upper and lower worlds meet. As regard to psyche, it fits in between the physical and spiritual realms, which is the top touching the lowest part of the divine. This means that the mind has access to all the worlds, a very crucial aspect of human capacity or capability. Kabbalah sees the interaction of the worlds as the twin processes of ascent and descent, or creation and evolution. The will of the Absolute is implemented in the downward impulses of consciousness through the worlds to reach its maximum force, or I should say maximum range, in the denseness of materiality. Here it turns and begins to reflect back in increasing stages of consciousness, that is in minerals, primitive and advanced plants, and lower and higher animals. Those in turn add to the wider consciousness of nature as it refines and adds more intelligent levels to its species that in turn enhance the capacity of the Earth and subsequently the solar system. The notion that planets and suns are living beings is an ancient one, and as scientists observe the characteristics of celestial bodies, so their likeness to living organisms has been noted. For example, the sun's 11 to 22 year electromagnetic rhythm. That's correct, because shortwave has that same thing. They talked about 11 particular deals, how the sun has different phases and changes. And actually, so it's 11 to 22. Pulse beat of the solar system, which is like a cell within the body of the Milky Way, that in turn has the qualities of a creature on the cosmic shore of a higher ocean of reality. The esoteric concept of as above, so below is seen in the microcosmic, of the body and the macrocosmic of the earth. Both have enormous populations of creatures, each performing their tasks in the ecological chain, whether as the intestines or rivers or the lungs and the forest that breathe for the body and the earth. Don't ever tell us, folks. Well, I won't go into that. If this law is valid, if this law is valid, then it is not unreasonable to speculate, if one has not had direct experience, that there are also creatures who inhabit the higher worlds. That is, sensible logic will deny such a possibility, but then this same faculty of, quote, so-called reason thought the earth to be flat for millennia. Nor did it believe in bacteria until they were seen under the microscope. Up to the 18th century, the reality of non-physical entities was accepted in the West, but with the age of reason, their presence was denied, suppressed, or rationalized into subjective phenomenon. Some modern psychologists, however, have begun to recognize that not everything they encounter is a product of the unconscious. A few even acknowledge intrusion and interference from the invisible realms. This opens a door that has been bolted for centuries in the study of psychology. According to Kabbalistic tradition, there are many levels of beings. Some, for example, are responsible for vast operations such as the galactical development. These are the great spirits or archangels. Others of lesser order act as intermediaries, carrying out specific tasks like watching over the planets or species of plants and animals. Yet others are involved with more routine matter, such as cycles of weather or the maintenance of particular areas such as lakes or mountains. These were seen as the old nature gods or devas in the Indian tradition. In Kabbalah, the angelical and demonic beings are often defined in terms of the sephiroth tree. Some, like those responsible for diseases or migrations, for example, work on opposite pillars. One to stimulate the process of expansion, while its partner holds the function of containing on the other pillar, so that a balance is kept, so it doesn't go from one extreme to another. So we can explain that in some way with simply the body with being acidic or alkaline, and 7.0 is being alkaline. So anything above 7, like 8, 9, 10, that nature, is overly alkaline. And then the other down below 7, 6, 5, 4 is numbers in the acidity. So the middle ground is 7. To be alkaline and to be proper pH in a body is to be 7.0. Anything less or more is detrimental to the body. Okay, so if it's a 6 or 5, if we get down to the point simply down to 3s, our body is become so acidic that eventually we will die, because the body is not able to, quote unquote, throw off all the acids in your body to eliminate them in order to live. Okay, and it's the other way, can be the same thing with being too alkaline. It's dangerous also. And you see things people say, when you see people advertisement, they say, and it's craziness because it basically is fraud. You say things like, this particular water is 9. Okay, so it's not 7. So you buy a bottle of water and it has 9.0 on it, such and such. Okay, well, that means it's over alkaline. You don't want that. Okay, so you don't want to go to the extremes. See, that's what the millipillar in some way. So you go to extremes, one over here, acidically, you're going to die, and alkaline is going to be the same way. It's a different form, such and such, being a different purpose. Most people today are not over alkaline. Most people are acidic because of the foods they eat. And the body is trying to get rid of what we call putrefaction and get that out of the body. And that's why some of us who look into this, the only 2 fruits that are available that actually in some ways are very advantageous for your body is what we call lemons and limes. And they are both acidic, but once they go into the body, they become alkaline. It is a miracle that happens. There might be other fruits, but those are the 2 ones I know of in my own study, so to speak. Anyway, I've gotten off chat. I'm just talking about balance here. Yet other beings might operate in the vertical mode, with one above and one below, carrying out a reciprocal flow operation such as an annual process of springtime manifestation and autumn dissolution. Correct. What we're seeing today in my backyard is dissolution. I can look out my tree here. I have 2 large trees, one oak and one is a maple. The maple in the last 3 days has changed dramatically. It was at first at the very top, it was orange, sort of reddish, sort of. The rest of the tree was green. Today, as yesterday it was, it's yellow. So it's dissolution. It's dying. The leaves are dying. Same way with the oak. Although the oak has gone further through, it's actually, in reality, its leaves are falling off. Meaning simply is it's dying and going to be what we call stagnation for the next 3 months when it comes to the winter months. And then spring will come again. So let's see where we're at now. These creatures, like those in the terrestrial seas and jungles, are part of the celestial ecology that maintains a field of consciousness at their level, like a flock of gulls, expresses the mind of the great gull that resides in the world of creation. These angelical and demonic beings are the archetypes of dynamic structure and maintenance within the worlds of Beriah and Yasara. They exist in their own right and should be regarded in the same way as the flora and fauna of the physical world, because within their realms they are quite real and powerful. So there's an analogy simply sometimes that we would call that Judas is Satan and Jesus is God. Okay, but it also represents simply is what we could call, in some ways, you can do good or you can do bad. So what the devil represents is what we call doing wrong, and Jesus doing right, so to speak. It's what we call being. It's also being double-minded. Being double-minded in a way, as Scripture says, being a double-minded, meaning simply you're unstable in all your ways. You must be single-minded. You see, and when you're single-minded, you no longer are on the tree of good and evil. You have found life, and that's what tree of life means. You found true life. You no longer are at war with one another. You're now unified and become one. You see. The existence of a whole hierarchy of beings who live in the upper worlds is accepted by most spiritual traditions, although they may see themselves or may see them in different cultural forms. In Kabbalah, these hosts are seen in terms of Jacob's ladder, which each other limits to a specific level, in the same way as the whale and the worm are confined to their habitats. The human race, however, is regarded as quite unique in that, because it has the origins as Zilut, Azilut, it is not limited to any particular world. You see, we're not limited. We're not kept in a quote-unquote glass bottle, so to speak. You see, or as a fish is in a fish bowl, or in the ocean. You know, a fish can, a fish can come up and come onto the beach, but it will not survive. You see, it's not made for both worlds. But then you have to look at a human being, and a human being is not made for quote-unquote going in the water. Simply is, but if he jumps in the water, can he breathe the water? No, he'll suffocate. You see, he'll drown. And we're going to stop there at this point. That's chapter 4 of Psychology and Kabbalah today. All right. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you listening. Hope this is helping you out to understand more about who you are.